All right, this week's memory verse, I have my board here, and it is Ephesians 5:15 through 17. Pay careful attention then to how you walk, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. And I chose this verse for this week to meditate on because the inspiration came from a recent discussion I had seen from Ann Elliott, who is a homeschool curriculum writer, and I'll share the link of her talk. But basically, in her discussion, she draws a parallel out of the scriptures, which is about making use of our time and how it's associated with wisdom or being wise, which obviously the scriptures tell us that we are to seek after wisdom. But a couple scriptures she references, I'll just show you my notes here. Psalm 90:12, which is just another cross-reference of that theme. It says, starting with verse 10, our lives last 70 years, or if we're strong, 80 years. But even the best of them are struggle and sorrow. Indeed, they pass quickly and we fly away. Who understands the power of your anger? Your wrath matches the fear that is due you. Teach us to number our days carefully so that we may develop wisdom in our hearts. And so there's this picture that understanding that our time is limited is associated directly with being a wise person and having wisdom. And even in this scripture, it's saying, understanding what the Lord's will is and making the most of our time or redeeming our time is, again, the opposite of being foolish. It's being wise. And so here is something that she had shared in her discussion just for the purposes of the devotion on this scripture. And I think she mentioned that she pulled this inspiration from somewhere else too, but you can watch it and see. But in my notes, so the scripture said we've got about 70 years as humans. And 70 years, when you add up how many days that amounts to, it's 25,568 days. So from lifespan of infancy to that 70 years. However, most of us, if you're watching this, you're probably, between the age range of 20 to 70. So if you're 20 years old, you have 18,262 days left to 70. If you are 30 years old, that time decreases to 14,610 days. And this is, again, on the theme of what the scripture says, teach us to number our days. So it's just numbering what are those days that we have. At age 40, you've got 10,957 days left until 70. At age 50, that comes down to 7,305 days. If you're 60 years old, you've got 10 years left, which is 3,653 days. And at 65, the amount of time left until 70 is 1,826 days. And so having an understanding of that comes from counting our days and understanding that our time is limited, gives us the wisdom to be able to kind of consider what we're doing with our time, which was what her discussion was about being, that idea of walking circumspectly is actually how the Ephesians scripture is translated in some translations, which is being diligent and watchful and exact and intentional with our time, which was the name of her discussion. And so as I'm memorizing the scripture this week and meditating on it, I think that's what I'm going to try to pull from it is remembering to be intentional with my time. And so with that, we'll get started with some memory devices. So I've got pictures here for pay. It's, somebody giving someone money. Pay careful. This is like a guy is walking carefully, taking his step carefully outside of this little ring. So pay careful attention then to how you walk. This is just showing somebody walking. Not, so we've got the little no, not as unwise people. This is someone who is actually sawing the branch that he is sitting on. So that is very unwise. It will lead to bad ends. But as wise, this is someone who's reading their Bible and gleaning wisdom. And then in verse 16, it's making the most of the time. So I've got somebody making something here. He's constructing a little airplane. And then for time, an hourglass, forgot what that was called for a second, to represent the time that we have left in a clear image. Because the days, so this is just showing like a little day calendar, are evil. This, I didn't even want to, some of the images that came up for the word evil. I got these from Google Images, but I didn't even want to have some of those in my house. But so this is just a little creepy looking guy with red eyes to represent evil and help us remember that. Again, don't. This is like a do not sign to remember the negative connotation. So don't be foolish. This is a guy who has a blindfold on. He can't even see what's in front of him, and he's about to walk off a cliff. So very foolish. But don't be foolish, but understand. Little guy with a light bulb, like he is reading this book and he just comprehended something from it. The light's going off. What the Lord's will is. So to start from the beginning, pay careful attention. Let's go ahead. This is from Ephesians 5. So I'm going to erase Ephesians. And I need two hands here. It's kind of hard to erase. Sorry about that imagery. Pay and then this guy's being careful, so that'll help us to remember careful. And as I go over this scripture, you're going to be saying the entire thing with me, but I'm not going to say these words that I've erased because that's going to help us to remember when you're having to say it on your own, or I'm going to go over this video later and say it on my own. It'll help us to really retain those words. So we've got Ephesians, which you can still kind of see. 5:15 through 17. Let's start there, and I'm going to point to the blanks. That's where you're saying them out loud. Ready? 5:15 through 17. Attention, then, to how you walk, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Okay? And then we'll go ahead and erase to how walk. I've had this board made for several days now, actually, so that's probably why it's a little harder to erase, but you'll have a little bit of hints. Okay, starting over with the first word, 5:15 through 17. Attention, then, you, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Again, you should be saying all of this with me out loud. Don't just listen to it, because that doesn't achieve its full effect. So I erased the word not, and that little sign will help us remember. And then not as, how about unwise people? So this time you're going to remember not unwise people. Okay, ready? 5:15 through 17. Attention then, you but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Okay? But as wise. So we've got this guy gleaning wisdom from his reading his Bible. And let's go ahead. So I erased wise, and we'll erase making. Okay, so lesson learned for next time. I'm going to make my board up just before I'm ready to make the video. So again, we're going to remember wise and making, starting from the beginning. 5:15 through 17. Attention, then, you but as the most of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Okay, so making the most of the time. And then we'll go ahead and erase days. Well, because as well. Making the most of the time because that's one of those words that kind of transitions you into the next thought. And so it's helpful to remember those words. So there's a specific reason that it tells us to redeem the time or make the most of the time. Okay, so we're going to remember time, because, and days. And I'll start up here. 5:15 through 17. Attention then, you but as the most of the are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and erase evil. And don't be. I also have some American Sign Language helps. That tends to be the way that really helps me to retain things, is by having that kind of physical gesture to go along with it. So if that's helpful, look on my channel for this verse. All right, starting from the beginning. 5:15 through 17. Attention, then, you but as the most of the are so foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Okay? And the next word, we'll go ahead and erase foolish. And understand. Okay, so we're going to remember now foolish and understand. Starting from the beginning, 5:15 through 17. attention then, you but as the most of the are so, but what the Lord's will is. Okay, and then just gonna erase Lord's will is the last three words. And then I'm also going to come up here and erase 5, 15 through 17 because we've said that enough times. I think we can get it. Okay. From the beginning. Attention then, you but as the most of the are so, but what the. All right, maybe let's go ahead and do it again with, I'm just gonna erase some of these other longer sections. Most of the, so this was the section of making the most of the time. So I'm going to erase most of the, and you might be in a different translation where it says redeeming the time, but hopefully this helps anyway. And yeah, let's just go ahead and run through it. Let's go ahead and erase attention from pay careful attention. That's how it begins. Okay, and this will be the last time we go through it all together. Speaking out loud. Ready? Then you but as the are so, but, oops, sorry, I skipped that, but what the, okay. All right, as we listen to this for at least a few days, hopefully this will help us to get this verse committed to our memories this week and into our hearts. So, shalom.